one way to wake up in the morning.
How the heck are you?
Yep, that's it. Miller
Do you know you can clean your own car?
and Moulton.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. The things we're going to learn.
Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio.
All guests appear on the Goldberg Noon Abraham hotline. Goldberg-law.com.
Yes! Oh, I like it.
It's up to you now. It's up to you.
I like it.
Now, the best local sports show this town has ever heard.
Getting echo.
Here's Miller and Moulton.
You're live.
How the heck are you? Miller and Moulton on this Tuesday, the 24th of March. Hanging in there? Hope you're doing okay. We're doing pretty well. Mark forcing a smile on this Tuesday, although he sent me a very funny text last night. Very funny text that, well, sometimes you get to a certain part of your life in which you know what, social distancing, it's probably not bad for all involved.
No, I mean, look, this is weird. There's no other way to describe what's going on as just odd, weird, something we've never experienced. But I like my house. I like it a lot. I don't have to leave. My wife wishes she could stay at the house all day. I get along with my daughter very well. I was yesterday, David, I'm going to start this show out with a story that I think you, of all people, are going to really, really enjoy.
We're starting with story time.
Why
with
not?
Mark Miller.
Why not? Because, I mean, what sports are we going to talk about to do? You want to do an Olympic monologue? Knock yourself out. We got three.
We did it yesterday.
Right. We knew it was coming. But yesterday, David, there are certain things that I think will make you smile in this world. And I think this is one of them, David, because yesterday, my pool cleaner showed up. Now, my pool cleaner is someone I've known for many, many years. Jim Brown is the gentleman's name. Jim Brown played for the Everblades, had a great minor league career, maybe had the best set of hands I've ever seen play hockey. Can't say enough good things about Jim Brown, the hockey player. Can't say enough good things about Jim Brown, the guy. Would, if not on the list, would be an honorable mention, one of the nicest guys of all time. I think would make the top 5 list. And I'm not joking.
Wow.
Jim's now a fireman in Estero. He is a really good person. Married, got 2 good kids. But I found out he listens. And he waited. He waited to throw this gem out. He held this gem for months, David. And yesterday I'm writing in my daughter's journal. It's part of her schoolwork, is that the parent has to write in the journal and the kid has to write in the journal. So we're doing a little schoolwork yesterday.
You have homework?
Yeah. In fact, apparently I didn't finish mine because not only do I have to write a little story, which my wife has done the majority of, seeing that it's February, and I think I've done this once, you have to include a picture with the story. And I don't know about you, David, but outside of stick figures, my artistic ability lacks ability.
Right.
So I still have to draw the picture, which I will fight tooth and nail. I look at it this way. I don't think she's going back to school this year. And what's the teacher going to do? Hold me back?
I think you should send her the Miller and Moulton glossy of yourself. Can you put that in there? Right. Is that okay?
Coffee almost went with the distance there, but you're on to something, David. Maybe we can autograph it.
Send in one. Didn't we have a coaster once? Or no, we had a glossy of
No,
us
we
that
have those.
used as a
There's
coaster.
somewhere. There's one of them still
Right,
around
those
here. Hang on.
cards. We use them as coasters.
Yeah, this thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I got it. It's on the back of the computer.
Put that in the book report.
Very good. So I get up as I'm doing the journal, and I said, Maddie, I've got to talk to him for a little bit. I haven't seen him in a while. So I go outside, and I'm talking to Jim and asking him a few questions, just how things are going. He's a fireman, asking how business, what's going on with all of this. I'm curious.
Yeah.
And he said, we do get a lot of flu calls normally. Now we're getting a lot of coronavirus calls. He said it really, and he was just talking about people that work he's got a friend that's a manager of a Publix. He goes, he's far more in contact with people than I am. I'm not seeing anybody compared to the amount of contact he's coming into. But that's not the story. the story is I had a couple of, I thought it was like a little mold spot in the corner of the pool. And I say, what do I need to get this out? Dude, I'm going to pressure clean the pool area this week. Can I just hit it with that? And he's like, yeah, if not, a little bleach. He goes, I'll get it next week. I didn't bring the right thing for it. He says, if Moulton asked me for this, I always do this work for people that tip me at Christmas.
See? There you go.
But it proves one thing. One, he listens, or at least friends of his listen.
There you go.
And he's offering you 20% off the monthly pool clean because you tip at Christmas.
Yep.
Now, I proceeded to tell my wife this story last night. I was laughing hysterically about it. I mean, that is, when you're hitting me with this in March, that you've held on to this for 3 months, because I haven't seen him. I very rarely see Jim when he comes and cleans the pool. What's he here for, 15 minutes, tops? Scrub, pick up a couple things out of it, and you're out of the place. Once a month, he washes down the filter. So he hasn't seen me, but he's held this just for the right moment, and he executed it perfectly to put me in my place yesterday. And I can tell by the genuine smile on your face that you enjoy this.
You said he had great hands. He was able to hold on to that puck long enough. You thought he was going to shoot earlier, waited for the goalie.
Oh, I went down. He had a 6 as a David. As a broadcaster, he had a whole 6x4 to shoot it in right there. I was down. I was in the corner. I was a mess.
Well played, Jim.
Told my wife that.
Played.
She told me, go to Jimmy P's tomorrow, get a gift certificate.
Wait, tomorrow? So what is this? Is this an early Christmas gift?
I think it's just
I think
it's an Easter gift this year. All I know is it wouldn't have cost me this much in December.
Miller and Moulton on this Tuesday. It is the 24th, and we are going to look back a little bit, but also you're going to get to hear from Andy Enfield in the latter part of the show. Andy's come on a few times over the years since he left Southwest Florida 7 years ago, and a lot of focus, obviously, looking back with the coronavirus and CBS and Turner, re-airing of old games, and all we have to do now is to look back at past tournament moments, and FGCU's run in 2013 getting a lot of play on social media and elsewhere, and so we wanted to wait until it was an anniversary date. Sunday the 22nd was the anniversary of them beating Georgetown. What is a Sunday now was a Friday night back in 2013. Today is the date of the game that is often overlooked. I mean, the Georgetown game was bigger in many ways, and Mark, you were back in the 239, and quite frankly, the Georgetown game was what put FGCU as a school on the map, even in Southwest Florida.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, never mind nationally. The Georgetown game was what got people in these parts to get all excited.
Well,
but
David, let's
go. The historic game was the one that was played 7 years ago tonight. It is why they are still the only 15 seed to make the Sweet 16, and a lot of people even forget who it was they played.
David, if it really and truly, and this is, back in Act 1, I don't think we get on in Macon the year that FGCU loses to Belmont if it isn't for you and I. And you logistically and me sales-wise, because no one in that company had any interest in this whatsoever. For us to do this, we had to sell it. And by we, I mean you and I. And, a couple of other people.
And it was the one time that FGCU put a little ounce behind it also, and they took care of us.
Yes, right? For that one they did.
Yes.
For that one, that was the one and only time. And we made enough money as a company that they were willing to put their toes in the water again for the A-Sun tournament. FGCU goes on to win the A-Sun tournament, and then the other company got the sticker shock of what it was going to cost to send you to Philly. And it wasn't, and you were getting on the plane, and I think they were taking care of at least part of the flights, but the NCAA hit you They hit you for phone lines. They hit you for this. They hit you for that. It wasn't cheap just to secure the rights to broadcast the games. And companies are not usually willing to jump into this fray without the guarantee of making some money. So, fortunately, we were able to do it in Macon the first year. We were able to do it in Macon again, and they win the tournament. And then, people still didn't really jump on board. I mean, if we don't sell this, you're not even doing the games. I mean, getting before the FGCU part of this was no one around here was interested. It was pulling teeth to get the cash to do these games.
The reason we lucked out, probably the reason that I was sent to Philly, is that FGCU was the very first team in the tournament that year.
Yes.
They won a noon game 2 Saturdays, 8 days before Selection Sunday. They were in the tournament at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, 8 days before Selection Sunday. And so it gave our former employers a full week to sell it. And we had to sell them on it during that week, but it gave them all that week. And then also FGCU happened to get a Friday night game, first game, a 6:30 tip on Friday night. So it was almost 14 days from when they last played that FGCU played Georgetown. And so our former company had nearly 2 full weeks to get everybody on board and what have you. And by that point in time, people were, all right, they were excited. Hey, the local school, they're going to be in the tournament. Word was getting out. People were going to, all right, I'll watch, that sort of deal. What are they called again? But at least it was 2 full weeks before tip, and it was over a week before Selection Sunday. And if it wasn't for that period of time, Mark, like if the ASUN tournament was the day before Selection Sunday, I'm probably sitting home.
There's no probably about it. There really isn't. There's no probably about it. Because if memory serves me right, David, I think half to 3/4 of those sponsors were mine. I mean,
Now, yeah, by the Sweet 16 game, No.
All bets were off. We were making money hand over fist. Everybody wanted to jump on board to do the congratulatory stuff. But I'm talking about Georgetown and San Diego State. Those sponsors you were doing were, if there were 10 sponsors, 5 were mine, 3 were yours, and 2 were for some other people in the company. I'm not, this isn't pat myself on the back or pat yourself on the back, but if it wasn't for you and I caring so much about getting the games on, they don't get on. There was no support there for this. This was having to fork out $5,000 with no chance, no surety of a recoup. And that's not the way they play ball.
No, not at all. But, and also, quite frankly, I mean, we were planning on one broadcast.
Oh, gosh, yes.
I mean, they were, if I remember correctly, they were a 13.5-point underdog to Georgetown. Now, I thought they'd cover. You asked me. Tim Reynolds of the Associated Press, as soon as the brackets came out, he picked it. He still got the tweet. I'm calling it, he said. FGC over Georgetown. He's still got it.
Yeah, I don't count it because I filled out too many brackets. I did have them in one, but it doesn't count.
But so they beat Georgetown 78-68, and then the game that most people forget. I mean, if you asked folks, who did they play in the second round? Maybe this year they heard that team's name again, but it was San Diego State with former Michigan head coach Steve Fisher as their head coach. And they had a first-round pick on the team, and they were good. They were the 7 seed. They took out Oklahoma in the first round, and it was FGCU. And San Diego State was a poor man's Georgetown, to be brutally honest. Similar styles of play. Otto Porter was the best player on Georgetown. The first-round pick on San Diego State played the same position and was the player of the year of the conference, just like Otto Porter was. I mean, San Diego State was a poor man's Georgetown. And it was a Sunday night in Philadelphia, and they played their best 20 minutes in the tournament. I mean, everybody remembers the 21-2 run against Georgetown. I mean, that's when they exploded. They had a bunch of dunks. Sherwood hits a three, Bernard hits a three, and Reggie Miller starts going, and Kevin Harlan start going nuts. All right, that was when FGCU and Dunk City was born, really. But the best half of basketball that they played was the second half against San Diego State. They put 47 points on the board in the half. They played great.
Oh, David, here's the thing, is that Georgetown, whether it was FGCU's playing good defense, whether it was the run, whether it was nerves, Georgetown's numbers weren't great. They didn't shoot the ball particularly well. Other than that, everything else was the same, turnovers, rebounds, things like that. San Diego State played pretty well. I mean, you look at their numbers at the end of the game. Shot 44% from the floor. They weren't terrific from the free throw line, but they were better than FGCU. They out-rebounded FGCU. They had a few more turnovers than FGCU, but, I mean, they played a solid game. Their best player shot the ball well. Unlike Georgetown's best player, who shot about 30% from the floor.
FGCU had two moments in Philadelphia in which things weren't going well. The start against Georgetown, things weren't going well. And they were down 6 or 7, and it's mid-first half, and you're thinking, boy, if this continues for a little bit longer, they're going to get pushed off the floor here. And they got a turnover and a fast break bucket, and it kind of spurred them, and they ended the half on a good run, and they led by 2 at the half. Against San Diego State, Mark, there's a moment with about 3 minutes to go in the first half. I think it was Sherwood Brown, maybe it was Bernard, off the floor in foul trouble, and they're losing. And the half could have gone either way. It's at the point of the half in which you're thinking, they're down 6 or so, and they're shorthanded because of foul difficulty, and you're thinking, boy, if they get outscored here, they could be down 10-12 at the half, and they could be in real trouble. And instead, the push came from FGCU, and they cut it to 1 at the half. And you felt like, all right, FGCU survived here. San Diego State outplayed them. FGCU had their moments when they were in trouble, and they're only down 1 at the half. And usually this goes the other way. Usually it's the underdog, and they're having the half, and the better team, the better seed, finds a way to go into the locker room and make it a tight game, and then they come out of the locker room and they take control. And in fact, and then in the second half, it goes back and forth for a while. And then about midway through the second half, FGCU says, this is our time. And once again, the little guy doesn't do this. They did it to Georgetown. Now they're doing it to San Diego State. No. This is when you get pushed off the floor.
And I think that I'm not taking anything away from this, David. I don't want anybody to think that. But they got a great draw, not just in the teams they played, but in the universities that they played. They played Georgetown and Philadelphia. Philadelphia is a Villanova town, among other teams, St. Joe's, Temple, whatever you want to say. But from a college basketball standpoint, it's not a Georgetown town. In fact, Philadelphia doesn't like Georgetown. So when they start going and they start making that run, well, the crowd's behind them. And then San Diego State, there couldn't have been 8 people there rooting for the Aztecs. As a team playing a 2, they could have run into a much more difficult school and fan base. They played a private school from D.C. without a huge alumni base, and then they played San Diego State. Again, I'm not diminishing this incredible accomplishment, but when you do take the time to look back upon it, you do have to point out all of the things that worked out to their benefit. And to me, the one thing that it has nothing to do with the games, but it has to do with the atmosphere, is that everything was built for the atmosphere to be in favor of FGCU.
If they could do their part. I mean, the
exactly,
Wells Fargo
David.
Arena is about a 18 to 20,000 seat arena. Georgetown did have 5,000 fans, though. But once FGCU went on their run, the whole rest of the building started rooting for FGCU. So next thing you know, it's 3-1 FGCU.
Right.
And against San Diego State, they got 99% of the building.
Right, and think about it.
20,000 seat home game.
If they're playing, an Ohio State, a Kansas, a Kentucky, a Michigan State, I mean, come on, anybody but Duke, David. There's a handful of schools that don't have the alumni base to support themselves. If you're playing one of the Blue Bloods, the crowd's 80% theirs, and they start buying the tickets in November because they know they're going to be there.
And Duke was part of that pod also, and after FGCU beat San Diego State, Duke actually played and beat Creighton. So you had 5,000 Georgetown fans, and then also, Mark, they unload their tickets. They were planning on being in there for the weekend. They're going to win in the first round. They're going to play on Sunday. They got hotel rooms, the whole deal,
right.
And all of a sudden everything's opening up. So those 5,000 Georgetown tickets, they get filled by people from Philadelphia who now want to come and watch either Duke or this phenomenon who are playing back-to-back on a Sunday night.
Right. They want to watch Duke, but if FGCU's winning, they're rooting for the little guy from Florida. It's just easy.
Mark, listen, in the Sweet 16 in Dallas, FGCU was another 13 or so point underdog against Florida. But I thought, because walking into Jarrah's place through the parking lot, it was loaded with Kansas fans. Jayhawk fans were everywhere, and it was Kansas against Michigan, and it was FGCU against Florida. And, Florida had, a few thousand fans there. Michigan was well represented. The place was half Kansas.
Right.
And the Jayhawk fans were rooting for FGCU.
Of course they were. It was an easier game in the region final.
Absolutely. Right. And so I'm walking through the parking lot with an FGCU shirt on and the equipment. And, you would have thought I was the play-by-play guy of Kansas. They were so happy to see anything having to do with FGCU. And when Kansas blew the first game against Michigan, they had a 14-point lead late and ended up losing in overtime. And the air came out of the arena. And because all the Kansas fans were saying, we're going to win and we're going to stay for your game. We're rooting for you. And FGCU, this emotional wave, the whole deal. And first off, Wells Fargo Arena, 18 to 20,000 seats. So when the crowd's behind you, you can really feel it. All right? Big football stadium, totally different atmosphere. That's number one. Number two, the Kansas fans were sitting there in shock.
And they were gone by the middle of the first half, too.
And they left at halftime. They're like, this just sucks. We got to go to the bar. And so FGCU, which I felt, kind of needed
absolutely.
Everything that they could. Kansas losing, all right, I felt hurt FGCU. And because FGCU got off to a great start against Florida, led by double digits, actually, mid-first half. And then Bernard picked up his second foul. It's funny, if you really talk to Andy on the side, the officials Bernard got called for his first foul, and it wasn't on Bernard. And FGCU argued for minutes to hey, you got the wrong guy, change it. And they never changed it. So when Bernard picks up his second foul with about 8 minutes to go in the half, Andy sits him for the rest of the half. And Bernard Thompson had averaged 24 points in the first two games.
And I think he was the best. I think he was the best defender outside on the perimeter they had on that team, too. Comer wasn't a great defender. Sherwood wasn't a great defender. Bernard could take a score and limit him. I'm not saying he could shut him down, but Bernard was their best perimeter defender, and it wasn't close.
And he played the passing lanes great.
Yeah.
And without Bernard on the floor, FGCU gets outscored 16-2 to end the first half. And instead of being up 10, they're down 4. And you combine that with the fact that then 25,000 Kansas fans walk out of the joint. And I remember thinking, so all the little things that went in their favor in Philadelphia were some of the little things that could have helped. That didn't go in their favor in Dallas, and Florida obviously pulled away and won in the Sweet 16. But taking a look back today is 7 years to the day when FGCU did something that still no one else has done. They are the only 15 seed to make it to the Sweet 16 of the NCAA tournament. They beat San Diego State, Georgetown by 10, San Diego State by 10 to advance to the Sweet 16. And so we'll talk to Michael Fly, Andy Enfield, and Brett Comer later on in the show.
They've showed a lot of highlights, as you said. Tony Kornheiser went nuts about it. They had on Thursday of last week for the Throwback Thursday, they ran the clip of Kornheiser going nuts about FGCU. And then SportsCenter ran the top 10 upsets or tournament runs, and they were like Team 6. And they show the one alley-oop from Comer to Feeler. In the moment, you're just excited. I mean, I'm giddy like a kid. I'm like a 12-year-old cheering on my couch watching the game. But when I've watched that a few times lately, Jesus, was he up in the air. His elbow's over the damn rim there.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he is way up in the air.
Yeah. Well,
that is the opposite of the movie title. That's all I'm telling you. Because that white boy was up in the air.
And it was weird for me because I was directly across from the FGCU bench at the free throw line. So if you see that highlight again, when Comer is dribbling and he's coming in from the wing and he's starting to go baseline, it's right in front of me. Now, I see Feeler kind of out of the corner of my left eye. But, I'm thinking Brett's trapped along the baseline here. And Georgetown's making a run. People forget FGCU was up 19. Georgetown cuts it to 4 with a minute to go in the game. But this particular dunk, they're up 7. Georgetown's made a run. They're pressing. There's a little under 2 minutes to go. And when he throws that pass up in the air, and I even knew that Feeler was there, I'm like, he ain't going to be able to get this one. And then obviously he got it. And I mean, there aren't many times, and broadcasting, there aren't many times that you actually get goosebumps while the game is going on. That was a moment in which it was the first time ever that I had felt goosebumps broadcasting a game while the game was still going on. The place erupted in noise, the likes of which you only hear in, quite frankly, like a huge football game when you're down on the field. Like I had heard it in the Swamp with Florida. Florida got a pick 6 against Winky's Florida State team that ended up winning the national title to take the lead in the third quarter. And that was the most noise I'd ever heard before. And then that was when the Wells Fargo Arena just erupted. And it was as if the Flyers had won a playoff game in overtime. And I'm like, oh, my goodness. So this is what broadcasting big-time sports is like, huh? Miller and Moulton. So we'll look back throughout the show. Michael Fly was an assistant on that staff. He's obviously now the current FGCU head coach. We'll talk to him about that and also talk to him about, quite frankly, the burden that run has put on both Joe Dooley during his 5 years and now Michael Fly as he enters year 3. Brett Comer will join us, and Andy Enfield will join us as well and look back. Next hour, we'll talk about the Olympics. I don't think they've been officially postponed.
No, not officially.
But the word's out that it's going to happen.
Yeah. The most important person on the IOC said they're going to postpone it. That's good enough for me.
Exactly. Basically, their version of Dr. Anthony Fauci. Came out and said, this sucker ain't happening. We'll talk about it. But first, the starting 5 next on Miller and Moulton. Thanks for being with us on Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio.
What time is it? There are times when we do this.
It is a crazy, crazy day.
Crazy.
There are other times when we do this.
I would never be doing something to make me look stupid. I mean, on purpose.
And then there are times when we do this.
Can we all agree now? Yes!
No.
It's not possible.
No.
When these times go down, you know you'll find it here on Fox Sports Radio.
Glassdoor. Find the right fit for your business in half the resumes. Go to glassdoor.com/hire to find your next hire. Glassdoor.
You should be driving a Kia from Galliana Kia.
It's Kia Madness at Galliana Kia in Fort Myers. Crazy low prices on every Kia in our giant inventory. 2020 Kia Soul or 2020 Kia Forte. Lease for just $99 per month. That's right. A new Kia Soul or Forte for $99 per month. Worried about your credit? Don't sweat it. If you've got $500 and you make at least $2,000 per month, our lenders can get you approved. Qualified buyers make no payments till June 2020. Plus, we'll take any trade in any condition, running or not, even if you owe thousands more more than your trade is worth.
Should be driving a Kia from Galliana. Galliana Kia.
It's Kia Madness. New Kia Souls and Fortes, $99 per month at Galliana Kia, 1/2 mile south of Daniels Parkway on US 41 in Fort Myers. Open every day, including Sunday. GallianaKia.com.
24-month leases, 12,000 miles per year, $34.99 through signing plus tax and tag. No security deposit subject to lender approval. Offers don't combine, expires month end.
No matter where you're boating, with Towboat US, you're covered by the world's largest towing fleet with over 300 ports nationwide. Your local Towboat US companies in Charlotte, Lee, and Collier counties are here to help 24/7, 365 days a year. Inland, the river to Lake O, and out 75 nautical miles. And new membership pricing starts as low as $99. Call 239-945-1664 for more information, or visit towboatuscapecoral.com. With Towboat US, you're never stuck on the water.
Listen to the Dan Patrick Show at work.
Never boring, that's for sure.
Streaming 24/7 at foxsportsfm.com. We are Fox Sports.
There's a lot of roofing companies, remodeling contractors, home builders, granite and cabinet guys. And then there's Tri-Town Construction, the area's premier general contractor, serving Lee and Collier counties for the past 15 years. Tri-Town Construction provides all your building needs, from roofing to interior, exterior remodeling, and custom construction of brand new energy-efficient homes. With Tri-Town Construction, one call does it all. And when it comes to insurance claims for home and roofing repairs, Tri-Town Construction deals with the insurance company on your behalf. No other building contractor compares to Tri-Town Construction. To schedule an estimate and learn more about this environmentally friendly and community-minded company, visit tri-townconstruction.com. The last company you'll ever need for all your home repair, remodeling, and construction projects. Tri-Town Construction. Homegrown and here to stay.
You own a home with a tile or shingle roof? You live between Port Charlotte and Marco Island? Hello, I'm Jimmy Williamson with Williamson Brothers Roofing. If you answered yes to either question, it's very likely your roof suffered damage from Hurricane Irma that's not visible from the ground, and you may very well be entitled to a new roof for little or no money out of pocket. But you only have a 3-year window to make a claim, and time is running out. If you have a tile or shingle roof and live between Port Charlotte and Marco Island, call us at 239-283-2013. It's a free, no-obligation inspection that can benefit you in the form of a new roof. Williamson Brothers Roofing, we deal with the insurance carrier for you. Call us at 239-283-2013. Again, time is running out. Call us at 239-283-2013. Williamson Brothers Roofing specializes in the claims process. We have experts standing by. We get claims approved. 239-283-2013.
Pool need a checkup? Call the doctor, the Pool Doctor.
Hi, Dr. Mark here. Heat pumps take heat out of the air and put it in your pool. They cost less to run than gas heaters, and you won't have panels on your roof. Special pricing, rebates, and free on-site evaluations. We're a family company, and for over 40 years, we've been doing business right.
The prescription is the Pool Doctor for award-winning pool service, repairs, and unheard of $39 diagnostic calls. That's mypooldoctor.com or 239-574-1133. State certified CPC 057088.
Here we go. Now back to Miller and Moulton. No. This is Miller and Moulton.
You're live.
"26 minutes before 7 o'clock. Thanks for being with us. We are Miller and Moulton, and this is Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio. We are streaming at foxsportsfm.com. We understand, because of our bracket contest, our binge TV show bracket contest, that for those that normally access the show via the phone, that right now there's no place for you to access the show. And so we will get that fixed, obviously. All right, you can access it via a computer, and you can try it via the TuneIn Radio app. But right now on foxsportsfm.com, the little button that's normally there for you to access the show is not there, and so we will get that fixed. Probably not in time before the end of the show, but we will get that fixed. 249-8167 is how you can chime in and reminisce, as we're going to reminisce a little bit today about FGCU's run. It is 7 years ago to the day that they beat San Diego State and advance to the Sweet 16, setting off a week unlike any other that has ever taken place in Southwest Florida. That week in between them beating San Diego State and losing in the Sweet 16 to Florida. 249-8167, 249-8167. We still have to come up with a poll question. Today is also the anniversary of another significant event, which I will tell you about in the starting five.
The starting five. 5 big stories that you need to know. This is Miller and Moulton Starting Five. Fox Sports Radio and FoxSportsFM.com.
Well, the Olympics have not made it official, but Dick Pound, who's a longtime IOC member, let the media know late yesterday that, yeah, the Olympics are going to be postponed. Most likely to 2021, but we haven't figured that one out yet. But the Olympics are going to be postponed. The Olympics have not come forward and said that, however. Australia joined Canada yesterday in saying, yeah, we're not sending athletes, just so you know. I mean, you guys can do what you want, but we're not going to be taking part in these games. President Trump is on record as saying he will follow whatever it is that Japan decides concerning the Olympics. There was this surprise retirement yesterday in the NFL, Mark. 29-year-old Cowboys center Travis Frederick walked away. Now, he did come down with an autoimmune disease, which forced him to miss the entire 2018 season. Frederick came back last year, and he played well. He was not as dominant as he was before contracting the disease. He played well. He made a Pro Bowl, but he decided, listen, I'm not the same player. I can't play the way that I used to be able to play. And last year, while I did okay, it was a struggle for me physically. And so Travis Frederick walks away from the game at the age of 29. The NFL and the team doctors have decided, yeah, we're not going to do any more physicals. And we've been trying to fit in some physicals, like Brady last week, went to New York, got a physical, and that's how that contract got finalized. NFL and team doctors have decided, yeah, we're not going to do anything else for a while until this whole coronavirus thing maybe dies down to an acceptable level of travel and what have you. Mark, the coronavirus has impacted the sports world.
Yes, it has.
In another way. A couple of former college basketball players have passed away because of the coronavirus. A couple of gentlemen in their late 40s, former Georgetown and Texas A&M guard in the early to mid-90s, David Edwards, and former St. John's guard Lee Green. Both passed away yesterday. Lee Green was 49. I have not seen how old David Edwards was, but if you take a look at when he came out of high school and what his college years were, Green and Edwards' careers basically overlapped, and Green was 49, and Edwards, in all likelihood, was in his late 40s as well. So, this disease is certainly not discriminating. Mark, we were just talking about FGCU and what they did, and they did it in the city of brotherly love. And if you go to Philadelphia, all right, you can come upon the Rocky statue, at the top of the steps there.
Right.
Rocky was inspired by Chuck Wepner. It was 45 years ago today that the inspiration for Rocky happened. Chuck Wepner, the Bayonne Bleeder, Mark. Bayonne's a city in New Jersey. That's what he was known as, the Bayonne Bleeder.
It's a hell of a nickname, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. It really is, especially for a fighter. That doesn't sound like a good nickname.
No.
I mean, it's nice of them to acknowledge where you're from, but okay, he's a bleeder, so that sounds like, well, he gets beat up a lot. And, okay, he was a journeyman heavyweight. And Muhammad Ali, 5 months after beating George Foreman in the Rumble in the Jungle, all right, Ali is still fighting. And he's going to fight a tomato can. He's He's going to fight Chuck Wepner. He's going to get a payday. And the Richfield Coliseum, not sold out, Mark. Only about 15,000 showed up to see Muhammad Ali against Chuck Wepner. $100 a ticket were the most expensive seats. And this was the fight that Sylvester Stallone used, and they used kind of Chuck Wepner and this fight against Ali as the inspiration for Rocky.
And I think the key phrase there is used, because they never paid Webner for any of this. And how long did it take him in lawsuits to finally get money from Stallone?
Stallone?
He finally won years and years and years later.
Oh, it took about 35 years.
Right.
Yeah. And Wepner the whole time, I mean, he didn't want it to go to court, and he basically wanted Stallone to just kind of put his arm around him and just say, hey, here was the inspiration for it, so that Wepner could then, have his own little cottage industry off it. Hey, I'm Rocky, that sort of deal, and appearances and fees and all that. But when Stallone wouldn't do it, Wepner, sued. And so he was a 40-1 shot that night, Mark. Chuck Wepner, 40-1. He came into the fight with a record of 31-9-2. 31-9-2. He had fought Liston, and Sonny Liston beat him up so badly, Wepner needed 200 stitches. 200 stitches to seal all the cuts. There you go.
That's how you get that name.
But Wepner knocked Ali down in the 9th round. Ali always insisted, that he, tripped on Wepner's foot, but they counted it as a knockdown. And Wepner, I thought Wepner went the distance.
I believe you're right, David.
So, 45 years ago, actually, Wepner, they stopped the fight with 19 seconds left in the 15th round. 19 seconds left, they stopped the fight. Ali was ahead on all cards, he would have won. But the inspiration for Rocky was 45 years ago tonight at the old Richfield Coliseum, which is where the Cavs used to play, and before a lot of empty seats for many years. Chuck Wepner, the Bayonne Bleeder, 45 years ago tonight, the inspiration for Rocky. And that, Mark, is...
The Starting Five. 5 big stories that you need to know. This is Miller and Moulton's Starting Five. Fox Sports Radio and FoxSportsFM.com.
At 16 minutes before the top of the hour. And Mark, when you really think of it, the fact that Stallone was watching, it was available on closed circuit TV in Los Angeles for $10. The story has it. But the place was only 3/4 full. I don't believe it was not nationally televised. It was closed circuit available, but it was not nationally televised. The fact that Stallone caught it is interesting enough.
Yeah, it is. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Liv Schreiber played Wepner in a movie called Chuck that was released 3 years ago, if you're wondering.
Settled in 2006. Stallone did.
So
the movie
30 years
came
after
out.
the
Movie came
was
out in
made.
'76.
Right. Think about how quickly Stallone threw that movie together. Or maybe he had it in the works, but then he just tailored it more towards Wepner. I give Stallone credit. when he pitched that movie to Hollywood, they were like, "Hey, this is great. We'll take it. We'll run with it." He's like, "No, I'm doing this movie. No, if you want this, I come with it." They were like, "No, we're good. Don't worry." No, it's all right. I'm doing it.
And for the record, Stallone never denied that that's what the movie was about. I mean, that's the whole thing of this.
Right.
The fact that he never got any money off of this
or anything,
because this was literally the reason why. So he wrote it after watching the fight.
Yeah. Chuck Wepner, the Bayonne Bleeder. And he took Muhammad Ali, and we've talked about this many times, Mark. Mark, that was when we still had 15-round fights. It would be about 7 or so years later, Ray Mancini, Dooku Kim, in which Kim died from injuries suffered in, I believe, the 14th round. And that's when the movement happened pretty quickly that, we're going to shorten these fights.
Wepner fought Ali, Liston, Foreman, and Andre the Giant.
Some good material right there. Miller and Moulton, 13 minutes before the top of the hour. Thanks so much for being with us. Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio.
This is a special coronavirus update from Wink News.
I'm Therese O'Shea with Wink News. Coronavirus cases in Southwest Florida are now at 73. Across the state, there are now 1,227 confirmed cases. Governor DeSantis asked President Trump to declare a major disaster in Florida to provide federal relief aid. The governor also activated a new travel order starting today. Anyone flying into Florida from New York, New Jersey, or Connecticut must self-isolate for 14 days. The CDC also issued new travel notices.
Hell of a vacation.
All non-essential travel to 9 more countries.
Makes a hell of a vacation if you come to Florida from New York and got to self-quarantine for 14 days.
Stations are closed to public
First
access
off,
as
how
well.
you going to enforce
County will
that?
activate the same closures starting at 5 o'clock tonight,
I
including
did
all
it.
government buildings, boat ramps, and trails. For updates on
I unmuted
coronavirus,
it.
trust
Okay.
Wink News, facts,
I got to
not
turn you
fear.
up. There's a lot going on over
that's
here.
you. That's not on me. I unmuted the
And I'm
mic.
with Wes Dobbins, a very satisfied Tim Tracing Motors customer.
What'd you say? I didn't hear a word of
the
it.
past 20 years, my family and I have purchased.
I didn't. I didn't have you up. I didn't hear. I just
Tim
turned you
Tracing
up.
Motors.
Oh. Well, how are you going to enforce it? So I fly down here. Okay, you're told to self-quarantine for 14 days. Oh, okay. Gotcha. First off, how many people are planning on coming and staying 14 days? I might be coming for a weekend. I might.
Exactly. That's my point, David. It's a 14-day quarantine. Who the blank comes on a 14-day vacation?
Well, I mean, what he should have done, and I get the sentiment, but what he should have done is, which I don't think he has the power to do, is to basically call up the airlines and say, hey, could you eliminate your flights?
The only thing he could have done was to suspend domestic travel for 30 days, and he can't.
Well, no, because it's all domestic travel.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it was. Trust me, it's been brought up.
And if you're not willing to, and where are you going to do it? You can't just do it just to one area. You'd have to do it to the whole state.
That's fair. Then why don't you swing by Hardee's on the way and get the new BFC Frisco breakfast sandwich with a crispy wheel of cheese inside? So every morning.
I mean, and also you're doing it to a quote-unquote New Yorker, if you will. They get off the plane and they go, hey, you're going to have to self-quarantine for 14 days. Hey, I got your self-quarantine right here. Why do you think I flew down here? I mean, I agree with the sentiment.
No, I do too. But the fact of the matter is that we have no idea how many people in Florida have this shit.
Oh, no.
We're the epicenter right now.
Well, they think New Orleans is. I heard a
New
guy
Orleans
yesterday.
is now? It changes. But you know what? You're better than I am because I'm not watching the news. I'm staying inside and not watching television. All it does is bring me down.
I saw a guy who basically had, in past administrations would have been up on the podium type deal. And he said his sources said we're 2 weeks behind, and B, the next 2 hot spots are New Orleans in which, when all is said and done, could be as bad as New York and Florida.
Well, I think I told you that thing with the new thermometers. I told you that, right?
No.
The company, there's a company that makes thermometers that, basically goes to your phone. So because of that, they have the ability. They've been for a few years now. They've been 2 weeks ahead of the CDC in predicting where the next flu is going to come, where the big flu outbreaks. This company's been right on because they can look at their thing and go, all right, the people that are taking their temperatures, blah, 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 are doing this. And they have, Florida was like on fire when I watched. I don't remember if it was, I think it was John Oliver's last show. One of them. I don't know. But because of this, Florida was way ahead of it. Now, like I said, it's hard when you got a 5-year-old to sneak in time for the news. It just is.
Well, there's really no sense.
No.
It's not very uplifting. And if you really think about it, for us, what's changed? We got to stay home.
I stay home.
I'm staying home.
My wife, they've made big changes at her place.
I could see where they would.
She was on the phone with her boss because all I'd been saying to her for 2 weeks is going, "You wearing a mask?"
Please tell me the answer is yes.
She hadn't been. She is now.
Yeah.
But now they don't see. Yesterday was first day. They don't see people.
Right.
They come to the door. The tech goes out, gets the animal, brings the animal in. They do their thing. They go out to the car. Yesterday, Eve had to go talk to someone because she had a deaf patient.
This is Miller and Moulton.
You're live.
Before the top of the hour, Miller and Moulton, Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio. Streaming at foxsportsfm.com. We know you can only get us if you're streaming us via computer. Having some issues with our TV binge-watching bracket has done something to our mobile app where you can't access the show. We will get it fixed today. You can still get us via the TuneIn app.
Let's be honest. There just aren't as many people in the checks and balances world right now on these things. So mistakes happen. I think people will be able to deal with it. If the problem is, David, there's no real sense of telling people where they can stream, even though it's very nice of us to do. If they can't stream us, it's tough for them to hear how they can stream us. But
in theory, they're now listening on the radio. All right, so that's why we're kind of letting them know what's going on.
With the exception of your mom.
Right.
Was she able to get the Tuned In radio app?
Don't know. Haven't gotten an update. Remember,
you need me to call her during the break because I know you don't know how to set that up.
Well, it is downloading an app. I can do that. And my mom can do that too. So.
David this morning, because I call every morning.
Stop it.
I have to call David on Skype so we can see one another, and you see that melon in the screen with me. And so I called David this morning, and it plays this awful little song that I dance to in the studio that I may go live before it just so you can see my pathetic dance. And David didn't answer this morning, doing whatever he's doing. So all of a sudden I hear the music, which means David called me. David initiated a Skype call, everybody. Yes!
Progress.
If we did the Dan Patrick, what did you learn on the show today? David can make a Skype call would be my answer.
249-8167. 249-8167 is how you can chime in on the Williamson Brothers Marine and Roofing text and talk line. The one thing, if you cannot access this show the way you normally do, it's why we have the Connecticut Cash, and Connecticut coming through in a big way during this coronavirus. Don't have to keep going to the store and buying water jugs and all that. Plus, they've got the best quality water that's out there with a revolutionary reverse osmosis system. So this is another reason why we've been telling you for many a year that Connecticut is the way to go. And they're also the reason that you can, if you miss anything, including coming up, Brett Comer, Andy Enfield, Michael Fly, as we look back on 7 years ago today, the Eagles beating San Diego State and advancing to the Sweet 16. The historic part of their run was actually 7 years ago today. Most people remember the first part of the run, the Georgetown game, But the historic part of the run was actually the win 7 years ago tonight, and we will reflect a little bit later on in the show. Chris Chavez of Sports Illustrated will join us coming up to talk about the Olympics, which seemingly are not going to be the 2020 Summer Olympics. They're going to be the 2021, or at least that's what we're led to believe. We will talk to Chris of Sports Illustrated about that coming up in a handful of minutes. Mark, we do need a poll question. And I don't know if you want it to be, FGCU, Dunk City oriented, since we're looking back. If certainly appears we could go Patriots quarterback, because it looks as if it's Jarrett Stidham, Brian Hoyer is going to be their quarterback situation this year. As to now that you know the plan,
third place or last place. I mean, what is it you're trying to get to?
Yeah, how many games do you think they will win this year? And we have noted that the AFC East teams will play, at least on paper, what appears to be a more formidable schedule than what they played last year. So, one or the other. Something to have to do with
1 minute,
or something having to do with the Patriots quarterback situation. Unless you got something else.
No, David, I have to turn you up so loud to hear you in my headset so that when Giro gives us the 1 minute, he nearly knocks my ears off. That's like you're at a 2 and Giro's at about a 14 when I get that 1 minute. So it nearly, I forget that's coming, and it just about knocked my socks off. That's why you saw my eyes nearly come out of my head there. It wasn't because of your poll questions.
Oh, I just thought you were about ready to pass out. I thought it was something I said.
No, it was. I almost did pass out. That was like a shot to the head right there. And apparently, I had the text line reset yesterday, and they sent me a new password, and that doesn't work either. So right now, I can't get text as well. This show is going along. So this is the first coronavirus show that's impacted. You cannot stream us the normal ways, and right now we can't text with you. So send us a tweet. That Mark Miller, the David Moulton.
We are Fox Sports. Dr. Jim DiRispino from Center for Men's Health today in Frank's garage. Doc, I was talking to a buddy of mine.
I don't know how they can send me a password. That's Fox Where do you get the energy to do all this stuff? And it doesn't work.
Testosterone replacement from C4MH.com. And then he asked me what testosterone has to do with energy.
Most people are aware of the effects of testosterone has on strength and sex drive. But for 99% of our patients, energy is the main focus.
I became a patient because I didn't want to lose muscle mass.
And there is hard data that testosterone improves mood, concentration, and memory.
So Center for Men's Health isn't just treating testosterone deficiency, it's treating the quality of your life.
Let me make this simple. Your body is a machine, and that machine was designed to run with a perfect testosterone level. But if you want to see how good your machine can perform, go to C4MH.com and spend the $45. You'll get over $400 of lab tests and a 30-minute physician consultation.
It's fast, easy, and convenient with locations all up and down the West Florida coast. Go to C4MH.com.
Our sound is a sound that makes you stop. Stop. And listen.
Listen to me, and you listen well.
It's a collective voice that calls out to you, the fan.
We get a lot of zany people that call in.
This is our sound.
We're dealing with sick people here.
They're just absolutely nuts.
Crazy stuff happens. That's all I'm saying.
And you can only get it here.
Get crazy, get wild.
On Fox Sports Radio.
Mark!
Boaters Landing now has boat show rebates in effect on all new Four Winds boats. Our engine brands Mercury and Yamaha are also including their 3+2 extended warranties, but time is running out for these additional savings. Save money on your new Four Winds boat. Every Four Winds boat is built for family boating and comes with a lifetime hull warranty at Boaters Landing.
It's Fox Sports FM exclamation point.
I mean exclamation point. That's what I'm putting in there. I said apostrophe. I meant it. I'm cutting and pasting it in there. So see if you can log in.
I can't hear you at all. From Naples to Cape Coral.
See if you can log in. I cannot at all. See if you can log in to the Google Voice page for info. You've got the email that I've got with what the username and password are. See if you can log in, because I cannot. It tells me an invalid password every time. So fucking sick of this shit.
Got your caller.
Thank you.
There's only one way to wake up in the morning.
How the heck are you?
Yep, that's it. Miller.
Do you know you can clean your own car?
And Moulton.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. The things we're going to learn.
Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio.
All guests appear on the Goldberg Noon Abraham hotline. Goldberg-law.com.
Yes! Oh, I like it.
It's up to you now. It's up to you.
I like it.
Now, the best local sports show this town has ever heard. Here's Miller and Moulton.
You're live.
And as we approach a couple minutes past the hour, thanks so much for being with us. Miller and Moulton, Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio, streaming at foxsportsfm.com, broadcasting live many a place, including on the Miller and Moulton YouTube and Twitch TV channels. Coming up, Michael Fly, head coach of FGCU, as we look back on Dunk City's run to the Sweet 16. Brett Comer will join us an hour from now, and Andy Enfield will join us in our 8 o'clock hour as well. It is a pleasure to welcome from Sports Illustrated, Chris Chavez. He covers the Olympics. You can follow him on Twitter at Chris Chavez, Chavez. Chris, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. It's definitely been better times for everyone, I would say, but definitely been staying pretty busy with keeping up with all the latest news regarding the Olympics, and then just how this pandemic has really affected the sports world.
Chris, your surprise level of finding out yesterday, or discovering yesterday rather, that it looks as if the Olympics are going to be postponed. It looks as if 2021, although they have not given us a for sure date. It seemed like that was inevitable. How surprised, if at all, were you when you found out the news?
So I wasn't as surprised after this past weekend's announcement that they're going to give themselves 4 weeks to decide on the future or the fate of the Olympics, because, if they would have, I think Dick Pound, the senior member of the IOC, said it pretty well, where it's like if they were to cancel it, they would have just done it outright. If they would have proceeded as usual, they would have done exactly what they've been doing, and that's just, putting out all these statements week after week saying that the show is going to go on as planned, and just, holding pretty steadfast in that stance. But the fact that they gave themselves 4 weeks meant that something was up, and they're going to probably take this time to really carve out a plan for what that plan B looks like for the Olympics. So it didn't come as too much of a surprise, and especially, I think, after we saw Canada pull its pretty much a self-imposed boycott of the Olympics, saying that they weren't going to send any sort of team, and then they get backed up in a way by Australia. So the dominoes are starting to really fall, and ultimately, if the United States would have done something to that level, then it probably could have sped this whole process up. But the suspicion was that once teams started pulling out, then it was going to get pretty bad for them trying to proceed as usual.
Well, Chris, what options do they have if they want to keep it in 2020? I mean, is that viable?
I think that option is probably looking slimmer and slimmer in terms of just for keeping it as is in July. I think there is still a chance it gets pushed back to the fall, but there's just so much uncertainty right now with the coronavirus, whether, even seeing something like the Boston Marathon getting postponed to September or the London Marathon to October, there's this thought in the back of your head of, like, is that still too soon? Because we just don't know when exactly the pandemic is going to be under control. So the safest option, I would say, would be to push it back at least a year to 2021. I mean, what you don't want, and I think a couple of the track and field athletes have said this, is you don't want an Olympics where the stadium is empty and you don't have any fans. And you don't want just a watered-down or scaled-down version of the Olympics, which is something you would probably get if you tried to hold this in July and possibly even in the fall, because at this point, we still don't even know when we're going to be able to get NBA games back with fans in the stands. And so we're talking the Olympics where there's, hundreds and thousands of spectators. So if you want the biggest party and the biggest show, you have to go, I think, a year.
All right, Chris. The problem that lies with waiting a year is that these athletes build themselves up for the Olympics. If I were to ask you in terms of percentages, what percent of Olympic athletes will not be physically able to compete a year from now, given their training, given their age? Simone Biles is going to be 24. That is ancient for a gymnast, as we know. How will this affect the athlete next year?
Right. So there's two different ways of definitely looking at it, where it's, there's athletes who really have to push back their peak. They try and peak twice a year, I would say. It's, one, to secure their spot on the team, and then two, it's to actually perform at the Olympics themselves. And so, this really pushes back athlete plans. Some people, they, frame their whole life around an Olympic cycle. So that's, putting off plans to have a family or just continuing to train at such a high level. So for someone in gymnastics, that's definitely so much tougher, especially swimming as well, and track and field. But you also have to kind of think of if this Olympics were to go on as planned in 2020, you're probably also not giving the athletes the best opportunity to put on their best performances either, because I think that's something that the USOPC has stressed, and USA Swimming and USA Track and Field have come out and said that we have to kind of prioritize the health of these athletes, and asking them to really push their bodies right now to train at the highest level so that they can be ready for the Olympics is very risky, because this is having people to go out there and put in hours of work. Some gyms are closed, so athletes are losing out on that. Practicing or training with a group is sometimes essential for some sports, and you're not able to do that because we're asking everyone to practice safe and social distancing. So would someone like Simone Biles even be able to perform at that high level if the Olympics were to go on this soon? I mean, that's another question I think we have to ask. So there's that tricky balance, but the Olympic trials are something that have also been impacted throughout this whole process. Some teams haven't even been formed yet because games or trials have been postponed, and so there's half of the Olympic team, more than half of the U.S. Olympic team hasn't even been determined yet. And so what this does is it also helps, push back the calendar a bit with so many, if we look at the sport of track and field, the entire spring season has been wiped out by this. So if we jump right into the Olympic trials, which is where they select the team, you have to finish in the top 3 of your select race, but you need also a qualifying time. Well, so many of those athletes don't have qualifying times because they didn't have a chance to run them during the season. So I think, waiting a year, as hard as it might be for those people who were planning to maybe retire at the end of 2020, or that their contract expires at the end of 2020, it presents some challenges. But for the greater health of everyone, I think that's the way it's got to go.
He's Chris Chavez. He covers the Olympics for Sports Illustrated. Follow him on Twitter at Chris Chavez. How much has NBC been consulted about this? I mean, Chris, let's be honest. This is a made-for-television event. From a business standpoint, between the IOC and NBC, and most of their money comes from North America, which means NBC Universal. I mean, how big a role does NBC have in this? Because I would think, Chris, that if they're trying to in some way keep it in 2020, that NBC's probably not real interested once we get to Labor Day, because then that's football season and they ain't going to get the numbers that they normally get. So, NBC can probably push this back about 3 to 4 weeks. And then after that, they're like, yeah, we're not interested.
Yeah, that's the tricky part, too, is the whole TV component. I'm sure that they're a major player when it comes to the decision-making along the way. And I'm sure, the USOPC has run stuff by them. I don't know. I haven't heard anything specifically about how involved they've been. But, if you want to look at it from a TV perspective, people were already making a big deal about empty seats at the last Olympics, and that's when fans were actually allowed at the stadiums. It's not a great look. You want to put on the best product forward on TV for people to see. You don't want this to be something where people will immediately be able to tell that was the Tokyo Olympics, because look, there's no one in the stands. So I'm sure they're being consulted and they're going to be in the talks when. But there will also be some sort of plan for 2021 if it gets pushed back. The other thing, too, to consider is that there's a lot of, world championships that some of these Olympic sports have scheduled for the following year. So they would have to balance sort of that. If anything, their programming just gets pushed back a little bit, I think.
Well, it will certainly make for a crazy 2021 from the standpoint of getting all of these things in. Have you, I know the athletes are obviously distraught and they want to compete, but have you heard any pushback? Have you heard anybody out there saying they don't like the idea of postponing to 2021 or that this is a bad idea?
I have heard and spoken to a couple athletes within the track and field world about, and some people prefer it gets delayed just a couple months to the fall. And there's some people who don't believe that it should get pushed back to 2021 because they were looking at possibly like the biggest year in their career, and that's because if we looked at some sort of times that were run during the indoor season that just happened, they were getting under the American record and stuff, and so. They were looking toward the biggest performance of their life, and they don't know if that's guaranteed for the following year. So I could understand that sort of viewpoint, but sort of also taking a step back. If you are an athlete of that level, you could find a way to hold it and sort of delay that peak performance for a little bit longer. It just the challenge is how much longer, and so. It's a question that is pretty much dealt with at a case-by-case basis with these athletes.
Chris, finally, what are you hearing in terms of when they're ultimately going to decide? I know they said we're going to give ourselves a month, but with Canada, Australia, and other nations going, yeah, I don't know what to tell you. We ain't coming if it's in 2020. I mean, do they really need to take the month? I know that if the United States dropped the hammer, it would probably, this whole discussion would be over. But what is it that you are hearing as to when they're going to decide to push it to, 2021?
It's the news cycle with this has been moving so fast. And last night was when Team USA put out the statement that said, it's more clear than ever that the path toward postponement is the most promising. And then they were encouraging the IOC to take that way. But they didn't explicitly say it's like, we're not going if it's still 2020, which is something that Canada did. So, it's the pressure has been mounting for a while. And, Tokyo 2020 was holding its ground and saying that it was going to happen. But as this thing gets worse, with the pandemic, and we have this need for it to get under control and encourage people to really stay indoors. The IOC definitely needs to take action sooner rather than later. So, I wouldn't be surprised if it happened by the end of this week, but I think the 4 weeks is in play for the organizing side of things, where they can have talks with Japan and the Prime Minister and organizers there to make sure that this Plan B and what it looks like is going to be concrete, and that it's feasible. And it's also talking to all the sports federations and these national governing bodies to make sure that everyone is on the same page, that this can happen in 2021 or later in 2020. So it's just the planning at this point of getting that timeline down for when this thing will get postponed.
And I'm guessing also NBC will be involved because they've got the Super Bowl in the 2021 NFL season, early 2022. So my guess is that they'll also get a vote considering the check they are writing. Chris, thanks so much for your time and your insight. We appreciate it. Stay safe. And hopefully,
yeah, you too. Thanks for having me.
Will do. Chris Chavez of Sports Illustrated. You can follow him on Twitter at Chris Chavez, CH for both, AVEZ for Chris's last name, and hopefully he stays well and can do the job from home as much as possible. 249-8167 is the Williamson Brothers Marine and Roofing text and talk line. Chris joined us on the Goldberg Noon Abraham Law Firm hotline. Local people, local practice, local knowledge, goldberg-law.com. Michael Fly will join us on said hotline in about 15 minutes' time. Brett Comer at the top of the hour, and Andy Enfield in roughly an hour as we begin to look back on 7 years ago tonight, which is the historic part of FGCU's tournament run.
Yeah, the upset was just one of many upsets. I mean, to be honest, 15s have beaten 2s. We now have had a 16 beat a 1. That had happened before. They weren't the first 15. They won't be the last. But they are the first to win 2 and the only to win 2.
I believe at the time that they won, Mark, they were the 7th 15 to beat a 2, and I think we've had it happen 2 or 3 times since. I mean, your alma mater was victimized a few years ago, Middle Tennessee State as a 15.
Absolutely.
Sparty in a 2-15.
They almost had it happen to them as a 16. They almost had it as a 16-1 with, I think, Austin P. Murray State took them to overtime when they were a 1. They nearly became the first 1 to go down. You know, yesterday in my timeline, and this really just affects me, but yesterday Graham Couch, who we've had on before, columnist from the Lansing State Journal, posted that it was 30 years to the day of the Georgia Tech Michigan State game and the Anderson shot that was a 2, not a 3. That was after the buzzer, not before the buzzer. No, I don't hold a grudge at all.
No, Michigan State fans don't recite this one.
Not at all.
Georgia Tech would win in the region final, and that was Bobby Kremen's only Final Four.
And I had quit college. It was my junior year at Michigan State, and I didn't really like my living situation. Lived with a lot of guys. It was awful. Second year in the house, and the first year, a lot of people had left in the first year, and it was just a bad scene, and I'm like, I'm done. I'm out. And I moved to Marco Island in January and waited tables for a semester. And it was spring break, and 4 of my buddies were in Daytona, one of the kids' parents, and they came down to see me with the intention of getting me to come back to college. Because I, at that point, had already been accepted at USF and really wasn't planning on going back to East Lansing. And that day happened to be just, a day with 4 friends. It was a legendary day of having a lot of fun on Marco Island and ending very late. But I remember being at a sports bar that at halftime we ran to another bar because the sports bar only had beer and wine. So at halftime, of course, we needed shots. And I do remember my buddy Tony Ziner throwing his Bic lighter against the brick wall at the end of that game and it smashing and nearly causing a dust-up that we had to kind of calm quickly after that.
Now, I don't know if this can bring any solace to you because I know that the Michigan State basketball fan still to this day is really honked off about that. If you had replaced Georgia Tech in the bracket and had won your next game and gone to the Final Four, you do know you were running up against Larry Johnson and the 1990 UNLV Runnin' Rebels, and no one was beating that team. Okay. All right. But there are many times in which we as fans look back on certain games in which we are convinced that this call or this play cost us a championship. It could very well have cost you a Final Four.
Yeah, and you know what, David?
For
Here's
Judd, but Judd had already won his title with Magic, and so it's. I mean, I know it still pains you, but it was not going to lead to a championship.
No, but you know what, David? Honestly, and I think this is, I really believe this to be true. At that time, this is when Big Ten titles and SEC titles and a Final Four meant a hell of a lot more than it means now. It wasn't all about the final game 30 years ago, David. It wasn't.
I'm with you.
And
I'm with you.
That's why I think it's different. And for me as a Spartan basketball fan, there are two instances of which State got hosed. That's one. The other one was, 8 or so years before that in Kansas. I also believe in a region final when they just decided not to run the clock for 30 or 40 seconds. It was a Scotty Skiles team, and the clock didn't run. And Kansas ends up winning a game that if the clock would have run, they wouldn't have had enough time. I mean, they just didn't start the clock for like 30 seconds.
Yeah, those things used to happen more.
Oh, yeah, it's great. Like, that one I'm not bitter about, but it's just, like, literally when I brought up the Georgia Tech thing once, a Sparty texts me and says, I'm still PO'd about the Kansas game. I'm like, you got a dadgum good point, because they just didn't, it's one thing for a ref to miss a call before instant replay and all the things. Yeah, it happens. It happened a lot. This is one instance where it happened to my team. But for the clock not to start for a half a minute in an NCAA game.
Right. Well, everybody was busy, unable to pay attention.
Correct.
Things happen.
These are
right.
Right.
Miller and Moulton. Do we have a poll question, or we're not doing one today? I'll say this.
Why don't you put one up, David?
There. Okay. Well, if I knew how. All right.
I know, because I almost helped you out the other day when you were doing your Sirius show over the weekend, and you put an A or a B, and I was so close to putting to you and then putting a poll question saying, just retweet this, David. But I didn't want to do. It's a national show, and I can't just take a shot. I almost called the show and said, do you need help with the poll question? But I don't do that. When you're doing your thing there, I don't ever butt in. I let you do your thing, and I don't even, I don't bother with texting or tweeting that much unless I forget you're doing a show, and then I text nonstop. But I got the biggest kick out of you putting that A or B. I'm like, why don't you just do a poll question, David?
Well, that was actually my way of communicating with them to say, hey, this is our poll question. So, some of the issues that we can have in the 239, you can also have it when you try to go to the next level as well. Speaking of the 239, the current head coach of Dunk City, Michael Fly, will join us. We'll look back, and we'll also talk about the present and the future. And we'll ask him, quite frankly, how much of a burden is it to try to live up to what took place 7 years ago? And 7 years ago tonight was when FGCU beat San Diego State, becoming the only 15 still to this day to advance to the Sweet 16. Michael Fly to join us next on Miller and Moulton. Thanks so much for listening. Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio.
This is The Herd with Colin Cowherd.
But if you're defending Phillip Rivers here...
What do you want this poll question to be?
I mean, do we ask if you ever think they'll go to a Sweet 16 again? But I'm just wondering, next time you think they'll win a tournament game? In the next 7 years.
I like that.
Because you could say technically FGCU's won 3 if you count a play-in game, which they do. Okay, but in the next 7 years, how many NCAA tournament wins will FGCU or Dunk City have? And you could put 0, 1, 2, or 4.
In the next 7 years, how many tournament games will that proofread mark, will FGCU men's BB win?
Yep.
All right.
And you may, now it's up to you. Do play-ins count?
Yes.
Okay. Well then, and you may want to put that in parenthesis. Play-in.
You know what, David?
Count.
I am putting it in parenthesis. That was a dadgum good idea. Holy shit! Have you been doing a radio show for a while?
You know what? I'm going to get water.
And a knife.
Everybody listening?
And a fork? Are you going to bring a fork over?
You know what? F you.
That's funny stuff, people.
For purchase and take home.
And it's
That
not
is
just the many
funny
colors
stuff.
of Cortec
At least
that you
to me
have.
it
You
is.
also have other Cortec products as well.
We also carry the Cortex Stone product. Looks like tile, looks like stone, but it's Cortex, so you get the softness, quietness, and the easy installation to go with it. We also have Cortec wood, look of wood, real wood, but with a more stable core for Southwest Florida's humidity.
If you haven't been to the Floormeisters, you really owe it to yourself to visit the store. 6281 Naples Boulevard, right next to Costco, or go online, floormeisters.com. That's floormeisters.com.
Pool need a checkup? Call the doctor, the Pool Doctor.
Hi, Dr. Mark here. Do the math. Taking care of your pool is probably not a good use of your time and money. Free $50 Bonefish gift certificates when you sign up for one of our award-winning weekly service plans. We're a family company, and for over 40 years, we've been doing business right.
The prescription is the Pool Doctor for award-winning pool service, repairs, and unheard of $39 diagnostic calls. That's mypooldoctor.com or 239-574-1133. State certified CPC 057088.
I'm a busy person. Catch the show anytime. Check out MillerandMoulton.com and subscribe to the daily podcasts.
Ever purchased an online item and either it doesn't fit, has missing parts, or became damaged? Trying to save a few bucks can end up costing more. My Shower Door is a locally owned and operated family business that measures, manufactures, and installs our own brand of frameless shower doors right here in Southwest Florida. And we were just named Lee County's Manufacturer of the Year. With almost 80,000 shower doors installed, we have the experience and expertise. Plus, estimates are always free. Want to see more? Go to myshowerdoor.com.
Great news, Southwest Florida. 0% APR financing for 84 months. Now available on new Rams, Jeeps, and Dodges at Galliana Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram in Fort Myers. Over 1,100 Chryslers, Dodges, Jeeps, and Rams in stock. 2019 Ram 1500 Tradesman. Now just $299 per month. That's right, $299 per month. And you own it. With interest-free financing for 84 months. Qualifying purchases with no payments for 90 days. Almost every 2020 Jeep Wrangler at Friends and Family below invoice pricing. Best of all, at Galliana Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram in Fort Myers, we offer at-home test drives and at-home delivery at your convenience. That's right, 0% APR financing for 84 months on new Rams, Jeeps, and Dodges, plus at-home test drives and at-home delivery. Call today, drive today at Galliana Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram, 1/2 mile south of Daniels Parkway on US 41 in Fort Myers. Open every day, including Sunday. Call 239-481-2600. GallianaCars.com. $29.99 down plus tax, tag, and dealer fee. $299 per month for 84 months at 0% APR. Excludes Rubicon. Offers don't combine.
Here we go. Now back to Miller and Moulton. No. This is Miller and Moulton.
Your life.
28 minutes past the hour on this Tuesday morning during these very different and historic times. Miller and Moulton, Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio, streaming at foxsportsfm.com. And to those of you who may have tried to access us on the site, especially via your phone, yes, we know the link at the bottom is not there right now. Our TV bracket busters contest is in the way. Needless to say, we will get it fixed probably sometime after the show, but we will, in fact, get it fixed. Joining us on the Goldberg New and Abraham Law Firm Hotline, Goldberg-Law.com, is the head coach of FGCU men's basketball, one Michael Fly. How are you?
Doing good, fellas. How are you?
Well, we're doing fine. And when we ask how are you, we're also talking about, wife, family. I mean, everybody, your staff, your players. I mean, everybody doing okay during all this?
It's been a very strange time. The players are at home. We did end of the season interviews yesterday via phone, which I've never done before. And staff's at home. I'm at home on daddy daycare with my 9-month-old Jack. So it's a different time for all of us, but everybody's safe and sound right now.
If you need any help, Coach, just let me know. Mine's a little older than yours, and you and I are both in daddy daycare. My biggest question for you, and David will get to a lot of historical stuff and all this burden and all this crap, but what I want to know is, I doubt since you've been married, you've spent this many consecutive days in a room with your wife. How sick of you is she at this point, or is this going a lot better than the two of you ever imagined?
You know, I joked with her. She's actually a prosecutor, and so now we have a running joke, and I keep saying to her at any point that, you know, there might be a bit of a discussion or disagreement. I say, you know, I keep hearing that domestic violence rates have gone up quite a bit during this Corona thing, and she'll just smile and laugh and say, yes, they have. So it's been interesting, but all good so far.
Well, it's still early. It's still early. This is going to put a lot of stress on many a relationship. That is for sure. When this run 7 years ago gets brought up, what are the first couple things you think of?
It's very surreal. I remember Brett throwing the lob to Chase, and I remember being crouched down on the sideline and thinking, you know, and I love Brett. I know he's coming on after, but I remember thinking, here he goes again. And he's thrown one away when we just need a basket, and then here comes Feeler and dunks the one. That moment sticks out. I remember, you know, realizing that we were going to beat San Diego State and turning to Marty Richter at the time and saying, Marty, we're going to go to the Sweet 16 at Florida Gulf Coast. You know, and it just was such a surreal realization that, you know, this has all come together. And you know, somehow 2 years ago we got to a campus that we'd never heard of, and somehow we're going to be in the Sweet 16 2 years later.
Talking with Coach Michael Fly. I'm gonna go Coach. I get a lot of heat when I call you Fly, and I'm like, it's because we're friendly. I call everybody else Coach, so I have to stop myself. But Coach, when you talk about that play, and I said this earlier, we've seen that play a lot. You know, they've been running it on ESPN and seeing it on social media. How many times did you see Chase get up that high? Because his elbow's over the damn rim.
You know, it's funny. People that we weren't on TV at that time, obviously, there was no ESPN Plus or ESPN3. So there had been a few plays like that during the season. Not exactly like that, but one sticks out in my mind. Brett and Chase and I have laughed about it over and over. I believe it was against South Carolina Upstate, and it was a home game. And Brett had a wide-open layup, and he's coming in transition. And, I mean, he's open to lay the ball in. And he looks behind him, and you know, I'm sure Coach Enfield probably remembers the play too when you talk to him. But, you know, we all on the bench are like, he's not going to do that. He's not going to do that. So he goes to lay it up, and instead of laying it up, he throws it behind his head. Well, you know, not a good basketball play. And here comes Feeler out of nowhere and dunks it over the top. And we had a few plays like that in the Bahamas that year on our foreign tour. And so we had seen those guys do that before, but, you know, that time, that situation, they were on a little bit of a run. It was an extremely critical 2 points. You know, that wasn't really the time that I thought that was going to work out that way.
Talking with Michael Fly, head coach of FGCU's men's basketball team. 7 years ago tonight was when they beat San Diego State, and that's the historic part of the run, being the only 15 to advance to the Sweet 16. How worried were you guys about the team being ready for San Diego State? I mean, I know that, you know, I had pointed out to you guys, listen, not only had no one won, but, you know, the 15s that had won before you, I mean, just all but one of them got blown out in the second round. I mean, you know, the obvious letdown, you know, coming back to norm, if you will. How concerned were you about the San Diego State game, about your team?
You know, when it's a tournament format like that, everything is such a quick turnaround that you don't really have time to think about much of anything. It's just, okay, great win. You know, now as coaches, you say, okay, what do we got to do? You know, what do we do on a one-day turnaround, and how do we prepare for this? And, you know, if I remember correctly, Coach Enfield had given Marty the offense for both games. I had the defense for both games, and Coach Norris had the personnel for both games. So we had everything split up already, and we'd already done most of the preparation work. But then it was just sitting down as a staff and, okay, how can we take advantage of them? How can we stop them? But at that point, you're just in work mode. You're not even thinking about, you know, what all is going on in terms of having the guys, you know, a big win and all that. Now, after beating San Diego State, that's when the that's when the trying to keep them grounded and the try to keep them focused on preparation was difficult in that week before Florida. But on a quick turnaround like that, you just want to try to win the next game.
Do you recall the crowd? Because I know coaches don't pay attention to fans. Do you ever recall anything, particularly from the Georgetown game? Because, that was a crowd there for, a Duke crowd and a Philly crowd. And so it was easy for the momentum once it turned for the crowd to start rooting for FGCU. But do you as a coach remember any of the noises that came from behind you, not in front of you, if you know what I mean?
It's funny you say that. I still do that with Heather after our games. I'll say, how was our crowd tonight? And she'll say, well, you were there. But you don't normally, realize that once the game starts as a crowd, as a coach, as far as the crowd. But I do remember from that game, and it was such a surreal experience from this standpoint. Otto Porter is on the foul line, as I remember. And, Georgetown's not that far from Philadelphia. He's going to be a top 3 pick in the NBA draft. And as he goes to the foul line, there's boos and there's a murmur in the arena as if, they want him to miss those free throws. And as I remember, I think he missed one of them. But I just remember thinking to myself, how is this happening that a crowd that, has never heard of Florida Gulf Coast probably until the game started is now, doesn't want Otto Porter to make free throws in Philadelphia. And it was a moment, again, of just that whole time, that whole few days of, man, this is not something that I've seen or experienced before.
The Sweet 16, how burdensome is it? And not just for you now, but even for when, Joe took over and you and Marty stayed on. Because outside of Sherwood, everybody comes back basically for the next year. And then Chase leaves. And it just, how I thought at the end of Brett and Bernard's careers that they were tired. I thought I saw in their face kind of like, man, living up to Dunk City these last 2 years, and this got tiring. How? Because your athletic director has joked publicly that we've done it in reverse. In an ideal way, you build up to something like this instead of becoming a phenomenon and then trying to live up to it. How burdensome is it, or is it?
There's two ways to look at it. Obviously, it's a tremendous recruiting tool, marketing tool, having the name Dunk City. It's something that, I'll never forget, but it is always, it's hard sometimes to live with. And you brought it up, but, if you look at Coach Dooley's tenure here, he had an amazing run and, winning 20 games, and we won the league, I think 4 out of his 5 years, but especially those first 2 years. We had everybody back besides Sherwood. The pressure was unbelievable throughout that first season. If you remember the first time we stepped on the court after making that run, I believe we got beat 30 at Nebraska. And you should have heard, Dunk City, where are you now? Where's Coach Enfield when you need him? It was brutal. And it was the entire year that, nothing was going to be good enough outside of going back to the NCAA tournament and, oh, by the way, win more games. And that's an unbelievable amount of pressure for a new coach and a group. Even though the group had been there, it was a different team. And I agree with you. For 2 years, it was hard for those guys, for Brett, Bernard, even for Chase as a senior that, we're still winning 20 games. We're still in the hunt for the league title. We won the regular season in 2014. And you would have thought we had 2 terrible seasons, and then even going forward, we were able to go back to the NCAA tournament in 2016, won a game in the first 4, which is a great accomplishment for any program, but especially a program this young. And, I had some fans, well, it was nice you won that one, but, it would have been better if you'd beaten Carolina. Well, Carolina played in the title game that year, and even the following year, I think Florida State beat us 6, and there were fans that sometimes said to me, it'd be nice if you guys could make another run. So it hangs over your head, I think, on a daily basis. And it's something that we actually try not to talk about as a team now. I don't talk about banners. I don't talk about trophies. And, that's been the difference even in my tenure here, in taking over a team with, no returning starters, versus, what Joe had to go through with that kind of pressure. We just try to talk about getting as good as we can as a team and as good as we can as a program. But, don't mistake, every time those guys go to the locker room, there's life-size cutouts on the wall of Brett Comer and Sherwood Brown and Chase Feeler. So there's a constant reminder of, what has been done here in the past. And, although sometimes maybe not realistic for, fans to understand exactly what all goes into that, what's expected in the future as well based on that run.
Well, but, they deal – it's a much smaller scale, Coach, but you think about the Indianas and UCLAs that were big-time programs that aren't anymore. They deal with it there, too. The other side of this, I would say, though, Coach, is that when you go talk to these young men and you're competing against the likes of other ASUN teams and other low majors around the country, your Q factor is a lot higher than theirs. I mean, you say Dunk City to people, they still know who it is. So I would have to think as the pressure comes with having to live up to what Andy and you and all the coaches did 7 years ago, it certainly makes walking into a living room a little bit easier, doesn't it?
It does. It's interesting, though, now, when we were recruiting this group, Caleb Cato and some of these guys, Caleb especially, being Dakota Rivers is another one that comes to mind, that were Florida kids, they remember the run and they remember watching it. And, I mean, Caleb's told me, his basketball kind of heroes at one point were Brett Comer and Sherwood Brown and Bernard Thompson, because that's who he's watching and growing, and Dakota the same way, playing for the same high school coach as Sherwood. But it's funny when I talk to recruits now, and you're talking class of 2020, class of 2021, they don't know what happened in 2013. I had a kid, I'll give you an example. I had a kid the other night. I said, hey, what do you know about our program? And he goes, well, I know you guys are Lob City. And I didn't have the heart to correct him. And I'm sure Blake Griffin and the guys in L.A. might disagree with that from their time there. But, there's that still moniker, but kids now that's so far removed, their parents might remember the run. Now I have to educate kids on, okay, this is why you see Dunk City all over campus, and this is the history of the program. And, 2013 led to 2016, led to 2017. So, of course, it gives you some cachet. It gives you, I'm able to send out clips to all of our recruits right now with all the nostalgia going on without, the NCAA tournament. So, of course, it's helpful for sure. But I do think there's a constant reminder, for our own players and our fan base that, hey, that was such a magical experience. How do we get that back?
Obviously coming off a very disappointing year. Saw something a couple days ago, a kid transferring in, I believe, from Austin P, which the OVC, a very good conference. They were a very good team this year. They won 20-plus games. Can you just talk about post this season and, the transfer?
I cannot comment on anybody that has not signed paperwork right now. Gotcha. And due to the current situation with the coronavirus, we're not allowed to issue an NLI or a financial aid agreement. So I can't comment on any new commitments, but I can talk about, we finished our individual meetings at the end of the season. What I do is sit down with every player and say, okay, how was your experience? What can we improve? Here are the things I think you can improve. We talk about roles and, hey, this is the role that I see going forward for you for next season. Sometimes my vision of a role and a player's vision of a role might be a little bit different. So sometimes that leads to a transfer here or there. But what we're really looking forward to for next season, and this is going to be the first time, since I've been the head coach here, that we're going to have this situation, but we're going to return 72% of our scoring. And I reminded the guys on the phone yesterday, I said, we're going to go from one of the most inexperienced teams in the league to one of the most experienced teams in the league. So this is not going to be, hey, I've never played with this guy before and I don't understand where he's going to be on the floor. And it was interesting, even in talking to our players and, asking them, hey, guys, we lost so many games. Any thoughts on your end on what we can do to make sure that we have the success that we're accustomed to having here? And it was interesting to hear their viewpoint that, hey, coach, because I would say to them a lot, guys, we're in game 28. We're in game 29. We can't make these same mistakes, And it was funny hearing some of them say, we understand you think, well, we played 28, 29, 30 games together, but that's not 2 years together and 3 years together, and that's not having played together over and over for different seasons. And so, our hope is just by returning, Jaylen Warren is a double-figure scorer and Caleb Cato is a double-figure scorer, and guys that got really valuable minutes as a starter, and Justice Rainwater and Sam Gagliardi, and we're very high, obviously, on what Dakota Rivers did as a freshman. So just by the virtue of returning experience now, and then we add some good players that we signed early, and we'll continue to recruit here at the end on transfers as well. But, we're just looking forward to not looking out there and seeing brand-new faces all over the court this year.
Well, Coach, thanks for your time. Thanks for looking back. And you're right, Brett Comer at the top of the hour, and your former boss, Andy Enfield, in about 40 or so minutes. So, Coach, thanks for the retrospective, and we'll talk again.
Tell them both I said hello, and I actually owe Brett a call back, so tell him I'll call him after you guys finish with him.
Will do. Michael Fly.
Thanks, guys. Have a good day.
Thanks, Coach. You too.
An assistant, a young assistant 7 years ago. 2 chairs removed from the big chair 7 years ago, and now in the big chair as head coach of FGCU. Brett Comer coming up in 15 minutes' time. If Andy Enfield was the architect, well, Comer, what is he? If Enfield was the architect, Comer the
conductor.
There you go, of Dunk City. He'll join us in 15 minutes' time. 7 years ago tonight, they beat San Diego State to advance to the Sweet 16. Miller and Moulton. Today was the day when. Next on Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio.
This is a special coronavirus update from Wink News.
I'm Therese O'Shea with Wink News. Coronavirus cases in Southwest Florida are now at 73. Across the state, there are now 1,227 confirmed cases. Governor DeSantis asked President Trump to declare a major disaster in Florida to provide federal relief aid. The governor also activated a new travel order starting today. Anyone flying into Florida from New York, New Jersey, or Connecticut must self-isolate for 14 days. The CDC also issued new travel notices banning all non-essential travel to 9 more countries. All parks in the city of Naples are now closed. Administrative buildings, police, and fire stations are closed to public access as well. Charlotte County will activate the same closures starting at 5 o'clock tonight, including all government buildings, boat ramps, and trails. For updates on coronavirus, trust Wink News, facts, not fear.
No matter where you're boating, with Towboat US, you're covered by the world's largest towing fleet with over 300 ports nationwide. Your local Towboat US companies in Charlotte, Lee, and Collier counties are here to help 24/7, 365 days a year. Inland, the river to Lake O, and out 75 nautical miles. And new membership pricing starts as low as $99. Call 239-945-1664 for more information, or visit towboatuscapecoral.com. With Towboat US, you're never stuck on the water.
Dial star 2020. Friends, I care.
Just when you think technology can't get any better when it comes to cataract surgery, Pure Genius comes along. It proves us all wrong. Dr. Jonathan France and his team of caring professionals at France Eye Care bring you state-of-the-art technology with a light adjustable lens. What's the wow factor? Your prescription adjustments can be customized after cataract surgery through a series of non-invasive light treatments. The light adjustable lens is made from photosensitive material into the power of an implanted lens in response to UV light. Imagine that, Mark. A lens designed for the usual nature of your eyes. It's lights on after cataract surgery with the light adjustable lens. Call France Eye Care today to find out if you qualify for your future in 2020. Dial star 2020 from your cell or call 239-418-0999.
Friends, I care.
Welcome to Jimmy P's Chard. As you enter through the front doors, you'll know that you've arrived in the finest steak and chop house in Southwest Florida. All cuts expertly cut at their very own butcher shop. A true butcher block-to-table experience. 3 generations of mastering Wagyu beef, heritage Berkshire pork, poultry, lamb, and veal. The mood of Chard's nostalgic dining area is upbeat, high energy, and casual sophistication. A friendly and relaxed place, not fancy or stuffy. Chard's staff works hard to make you feel at home. Come in and unwind. Enjoy an exquisite glass of wine or perhaps a handcrafted beer with your perfectly charred steak. Afternoon or evening, it's going to be a wonderful experience at Chard. Jimmy P's Chard on South US 41 in Bonita Springs. Jimmy P's Butcher Shop on Old US 41 in Bonita Springs. Online at jimmypschard.com. Welcome to Jimmy P's Chard. Stop in today and tell them Jimmy sent you.
Contact Miller and Moulton anytime.
Call me Daddy.
Save the Williamson Brothers Marine text and talk line to your contacts.
Who's got it better than us?
239-249-8167.
We are Fox Sports.
Boaters Landing, where you'll find the latest in Four Winds outboard-powered bow riders from 20 to 35 feet. You'll also find Four Winds boats carry one of the best warranties in the business. The Four Winds factory warranty is not just any 3-year warranty. It covers material, labor, and most boat components for 3 years. Four Winds boats, designed for families and saltwater. Boaters Landing, delivering the dream for over 30 years.
This election season, there's only one candidate with a spotless resume and impeccable service record.
Brooks Gourmet Burgers and Dogs is the obvious choice. Voted number 2 in the nation by TripAdvisor, Brooks Gourmet Burgers and Dogs does it right. Owner Todd Brooks and his staff are committed to providing the best burger experience and superior customer service. With favorites like the Donut Burger, which is a handcrafted burger between 2 glazed donuts and topped with American cheese and bacon, Brooks Gourmet Burgers and Dogs are truly building the dream one burger at a time. 4 locations: downtown Naples, Vanderbilt Beach and 41, on the East Trail at 951 and 41, and their newest location in Logan Landings on Immokalee Road in North Naples. See why Brooks Gourmet Burgers and Dogs deserves your vote today. Online at brooksburgers.com. Brooks Gourmet Burgers and Dogs, building the dream one burger at a time.
I'm Todd Brooks, and I approve this message.
Here we go! Now back to Miller and Moulton.
No.
This is Miller and Moulton.
You're live.
Seven minutes before the top of the hour. It's fitting that we're looking back on 7 years ago tonight, FGCU beating San Diego State to advance to the Sweet 16. For those that are interested, the FGCU men's basketball Facebook page, they're going to re-air the game on their Facebook page tonight, beginning a little after 7 o'clock, if you are so inclined.
Now it is time for
Miller and Moulton's Today Was the Day When, giving you the history of today's date so you're a beacon of useless knowledge around the office.
Useless, but a lot of fun to talk about.
This is Today Was the Day When, Fox Sports Radio and FoxSportsFM.com.
All right, we start in 1936 today, and for those of you, if you haven't heard this segment in a little while, wondering why there's no music, well, because the YouTube police will not allow music. And because David and I are in different locations, I can't have music turned down because then I can't hear David. So, therefore, no music. We'd have played some Rolling Stones today. I'll get to that in a minute. But the Red Wings beat the Montreal Maroons 1-0. They would score 16 minutes and 30 seconds into the 6th overtime.
Whoa!
The game lasted 9 periods, 176 minutes, 1-0 Red Wings. 56, the Dons beat the Hawkeyes 83-71, back-to-back titles for the University of San Francisco. 1958, this guy named Elvis joins the Army. 533-10761, in case you were wondering what his serial number was. The New York Senate approved a $55 million funding for a baseball stadium in Flushing Meadows today in 1961. Seems to be a good deal based on current rates. In 1962, Cincinnati beats Ohio State 71-59 for back-to-back natties in hoop. And this guy named Mick Jagger and his guitar friend Keith Richards performed as Little Boy Blue and the Blue Boys for the first time today in 1962. Wonder whatever happened to them. 62, also the welterweight title fight between Bernie Perret and Emil Griffin. Pereira was knocked out in the 13th round. He died 10 days later, but it was the first use of television slow motion replay in that fight. 1964, the Kennedy half dollar was issued. 1972, this little film opened up in theaters. Mario Puzo wrote a book, and they turned it into a movie. It was called The Godfather. Seemed to do reasonably well. 1974, NC State beats Marquette 76-64, first title for the Wolfpack. It was also the first tournament officially designated as the Division I championship. We played a little NIT tournament for a long time that was also considered a big deal. David mentioned it in the starting five, but it was today in 1975 that Muhammad Ali TKO'd Chuck Webner in the 15th round for the heavyweight title. That would be what Sylvester Stallone turned into the Rocky series. 1979, in a semifinal game, people started to get a look at this Irvin Magic Johnson guy as he had 10 rebounds, 10 assists, and 29 points as Sparty routed Penn 101-67 to get to the final. 1980, Louisville beats UCLA 59-54 for the first title game for the University of Louisville. Also, that night, there was a show on ABC about the Iran hostage crisis that was renamed Nightline.
How about that? 40 years ago.
1989, the worst oil spill. The Exxon Valdez spilled 11.3 million gallons off of Alaska. 91, the Hulkster beat Sergeant Slaughter for the WrestleMania 7 title at the LA Memorial Sports Arena. 1999, The Matrix was released. In 2005, The Office was created and, starred Stephen Carell, obviously, but it was a spinoff of a Ricky Gervais show that the U.S. version released today in 2005. Scotland defeats Sweden in 2013, David, to win the Women's World Curling Championship. And a year ago, Rob Gronkowski announced his retirement today, the same day that Mike Trout got paid. $426 million. If you were born today, you share your birthday with Harry Houdini, with Joseph Barbera, Hanna-Barbera, Steve McQueen, born today in 1930, Louis Anderson in 53, Kelly LeBrock in 1960. She's 60 years old, and as we go to break, I ask you all one question. Would you still? Brett Comer is next. Miller and Moulton.
We are Fox Sports! You should be driving a Kia from Galliana.
Wish I had a text line because the yeses would just
Kia Madness at Galliana Kia in Fort Myers. Crazy low prices on every Kia in our giant inventory. 2020 Kia Soul or 2020 Kia Forte. Lease for just $99 per month. That's right. A new Kia Soul or Forte for $99 per month. Worried about your credit? Don't sweat it. If you've got $500 and you make at least $2,000 per month, our lenders can get you approved. Qualified buyers make no payments till June 2020. Plus, we'll take any trade in any condition, running or not, even if you owe thousands more than your trade is worth.
You should be driving a Kia from Galliana. Galliana Kia.
It's Kia Madness. New Kia Souls and Fortes, $99 per month at Galliana Kia. 1/2 mile south of Daniels Parkway on US 41 in Fort Myers. Open every day, including Sunday. GallianaKia.com.
24-month leases, 12,000 miles per year. $34.99 through signing plus tax and tag. No security deposit subject to lender approval. Offers don't combine, expires month end.
The coronavirus has changed our lives.
COVID-19 can be characterized as a pandemic.
Who would have ever thought we'd see a day when sports would stop?
It's not about your brackets or who's going to win March Madness. It's sort of about getting through this.
Fox Sports Radio will continue to keep you informed on all the latest coronavirus information through our partners at Wink News.
The number of cases of coronavirus in the state.
And for the latest in our ever-changing sports world.
Tom Brady is officially signing with the Tampa Bay Bucks.
Count on Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio.
Did you know that King Roofing has expert dedicated repair crews to troubleshoot roof problems? They can fix everything from tree damage to broken tiles and, of course, roof leaks. Do you have a leak or water stains or tile damage? Call King Roofing, a roofing company with the right team to repair it. King Roofing, experienced in roof repair for over 40 years.
License number CCC 057279.
Every castle deserves a king.
WFSX AM from Naples to Cape Coral and all of Southwest Florida. 103.3 Fox Sports Radio.
We are Fox Sports.
Here's what's trending now. Brought to you by the Center for Men's Health, C4MH.com.
Got your caller.
There's only one way to wake up in the morning.
How the heck are you?
Yep, that's it. Miller.
Do you know you can clean your own car?
And Moulton.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. The things we're going to learn.
Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio.
All guests appear on the Goldberg Noon Abraham hotline. Goldberg-law.com.
Yes! Oh, I like it! It's up to you now! It's up to you! I like it!
Now, the best local sports show this town has ever heard. Here's Miller and Moulton.
You're live.
As we approach a couple minutes past the top of the hour, Miller and Moulton, thanks so much for being with us. Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio, streaming foxsportsfm.com, broadcasting live many a place, including on the Miller and Moulton YouTube and Twitch TV channels. Andy Enfield to join us coming up in about 20 minutes. He coached our next guest, Brett Comer, part of the Dayton basketball program. You can follow Brett on Twitter at Brett Comer, the number 0. Brett, since we last spoke, a lot has happened. How are you and your fiance and everyone associated with Dayton basketball?
Yeah, obviously a lot has changed, but we're doing all right. Obviously bunkered down in the house, and it's a little cold out here in Dayton, but besides that, we're doing all right.
Well, obviously, this had to be a bitter disappointment for you, your staff. We were talking about a 1 seed a couple of weeks ago, Brett, and, I'm just curious, how did the conversation with your coaching staff go with the players? I can't imagine a more somber room with what was lying ahead for that group.
So, obviously, we had to have 2 separate conversations because we were actually in Brooklyn getting ready. The following day we were going to play the winner of VCU and UMass, and then they decided to cancel the A-10 tournament the day before, obviously, while we're up there. So we had to have the conversation, one, that the A-10 tournament's canceled, not knowing what's going to happen with the NCAA tournament, and then, we get on our flight back home, and then the news breaks about the NCAA tournament. We didn't have a chance to really kind of talk to everybody at the time. As soon as we landed, we met back at our offices, and we had the conversation. Our NCAA tournament was ended. At the end of the day, the NCAA did what was best they felt like for the health of our student athletes, staffs. But at the end of the day, for us, it's tough seeing our seniors kind of go out that way and just cutting their season short. When I think we were ready for something special. But at the end of the day, they did what they thought was best, and you have to respect it and kind of just move forward.
And part of the reason why we have you on is because you were part of a group that did something special, historic, in fact. 7 years ago tonight was when you defeated San Diego State to go to the Sweet 16. We just had your former assistant, Michael Fly, on, and our first question was, so when we bring up the run, what is it that you think of? His first thought, by the way, was your pass in the Georgetown game to Feeler for the one-handed slam. What is it when somebody comes up to you and mentions the run that you start thinking about?
Well, I think it's 2 things. I think one, obviously, is the lob I threw to Chase. That's obviously, to me, one of my greatest moments is within the tournament. Our team, kind of got known off that lob, and it's something that was one of the greatest plays, probably I would say, in NCAA tournament history. So that's one. And the other one, which I don't know how many people know about, is after we beat San Diego State, we're going to go do our interview with our presser after the game. It's me, Coach Enfield, Sherwood, and Bernard in a back tunnel. And Enfield turns around and looks at us with this big grin and goes, who the heck would have ever thought that I'd be going to a Sweet 16 with Brett, Sherwood, and Bernard, and we'll all just stand and we start just dying laughing. Like, that's one of the moments I remember the most.
Well, David said that really nice to you, Brett, about that pass that you remember. Now, see, what I remember from this interview just moments ago is Fly saying when he threw that pass, I went, oh, no, all we needed was a bucket, and he just threw one away. I laughed because I retweeted it Thursday. It was on PTI. I don't think it took you 14 seconds to retweet that play yourself. I'm just, when you see it now, what goes through your head now? Because you had to have seen it 10, 15 times in the last week. What do you think about now watching it? What are your memories? I can think in the moment, but in the last week, what's conjured up in your head?
So it's kind of different for me now. Obviously, I've seen it plenty of times. I kind of look for everybody else's reaction after. So I see Fly standing there like kind of shell-shocked a little bit. I see Christoph Veredel celebrating. So I kind of look more for the celebrations from our staff at the time and players. Fly shouldn't have been shocked. I think I threw a crazier one earlier that year against East Tennessee State where Chase was completely by me. I just threw it up behind me, just threw it straight up in the air, and he just came and got it.
He mentioned it. Don't kid yourself, Brett. He mentioned it.
Okay. That was the crazier one. But obviously I understand time and score and whatnot. But let's be honest, that whole game was trending that direction. That's what we were kind of known for. So, we're not going to change depending on the time and who we're playing in the tournament.
How come you guys were so loose? Why? Why were you that loose? It is part of the appeal that Mark and I still hear about today, not just locally, but when we travel outside of Southwest Florida, that the joy and the looseness that you guys played with. Why were you guys like that?
Well, I think one, as a whole, our team was very, very connected, players and staff. We did everything together. We go eat together. We just all hang out together. I think we all lived in one building actually at that time. It was only there's 16 rooms, but all of us lived in one building, so we all spent a ton of time together. And then I think a lot of it had to do with the personality of Coach Enfield. He was loose. He liked to have fun with us. He wasn't so uptight and serious all the time. Obviously, if I would turn the ball over a couple of times, he'd get on me. But besides that, he